Welcome to this edition of the People's Playbook podcast. I'm pretty pumped today. We have a young entrepreneur with us today. His name is Carmelo Marsala, and he's the founder and CEO of SprayNet. And I don't know if you've had a chance to actually see what SprayNet's all about, but this franchise is revolutionizing home improvement and just sweeping the world, I'll say, Carmelo. So, you're in over 120 territories. You're a quadruple patent holder, a YPO member, and your paint tech delivers. So you've been featured on Forbes, Home and Garden TV, and even Dragon's Den. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Carmelo.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Carmelo, let's dive right into it. So I need to know, what was the aha moment that sparked the idea for SprayNet?
Well, I was actually a student painting franchisee, and I was brushing, rolling sides of houses and whatnot. And it's actually twofold. So first one was a customer who I really liked was a repeat customer. We had to paint his front door in his house. He called me a week later. He's like, "Carmel, I'm really sorry. My kid, school bag just nicked the front door and it scratched." And I'm like, "Man." So I go back and repaint it. A week later, he's like, "I'm really sorry. I'll pay you this time, but it happened again." I'm like, "This shouldn't be happening. Like, this is not normal. Like, you're painting something that's that fragile." So I was like, when you buy a brand new door, it doesn't scratch or chip that way. So why can't we do this on site? And that was number one. And then really what solidified it for me was another customer said, "Hey, you've done my siding, but can you paint my vinyl windows?" And I said, "Well, there's not really any paint that exists to paint those vinyl windows." But again, same thing. I clicked. I'm like, "Well, you buy vinyl windows and they're black, so they've been painted in a factory. Why can't we bring that on site?" So those two things came together to click, and that's how we started the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you started talking to homeowners about, hey, you could actually paint and this could be a true alternative to an actual replacement, what were their thoughts and what did they say to you? Because it does sound a little bit out of place to do that, right?
Too good to be true. It's like snake oil, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny actually. I'm looking at our warehouse, and one of the people that still work here initially told me, like, "Who's actually going to get this done?" And I'm like, "Well, 50,000 people later, quite a few people." But really, like how I did at the beginning was I explained to them the story, the aha moment. I said, "Hey, I went to look in factories how this is done, and I tried to apply those products on site, thinking that would work. It didn't. So I'm like, here's what we did. Here's how we met, chemists and developed it and whatnot." And then the patent, our first patent actually up here behind me, really helped solidify that. So our patent allowed us to weather adjust the coatings. And that's what allowed us to give that consistent on-site factory finish. And I showed them samples. I'm like, "Look, this is what I'm going to deliver to you." And the first few people are skeptical, but then once you do it, then it's a snowball effect, right? People talk to people, and it goes from there.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can ask you, so when this all started happening, what was your secret to scaling, a hands-on service business into a franchise across over 120 territories right now?
Talk about an aha moment. We grew like 1,100% in less than 5 years. So we went from like 250,000 to over 3 million. And at that point, I was salesperson, customer experience, marketing. That day I happened to be team lead spraying a house because someone hadn't showed up. We had like 15 crews on the road. Customer was talking to me here. I'm spraying, foam falls from my ear, throw down my spray gun. I say, "This doesn't work. It's not scalable. It's not sustainable anymore." So that winter, I actually started reading the E-Myth Revisited. And I spoke about franchising. And I said, "Well, I used to be a franchisee. Maybe franchising is the way to go." I spent that whole off season, because we used to only do exteriors, like jotting down everything I do, creating an operations manual, creating training. And then we signed on our first two franchisees. And then, the rest is history. That's how we scaled from there.
Wow. What was the biggest transition from being a franchisee, which you were with a previous company before, to actually now being the franchisor?
Well, I didn't realize, it was student painting, right? So like students are like, they're paying attention to training, they're learning. Now you get real franchisees, they've got a whole bunch of different baggage, whether they're middle management, not from the industry, whatever. And like you take for granted stuff that you kind of just intrinsically know and think that they know it. So we really have to get a lot more granular in how we train, onboard, optimize products and processes.
Yeah. When you look for a franchisee coming into your system, what particular behaviors are you looking for? And what do you is there that spark that says, yeah, this person has it, or is there something that you say, oh, this might be a lot of work with this person?
So a couple of things. I mean, the obvious ones, right? Well capitalized. Can they afford to do this and spend money on marketing, right? That's number one. Then if we get past that, It's their skill and attitude, but like attitude for us is number one because I feel like we can teach all the skill. Our litmus test is, do I feel I can have a reasonable conversation with this person when, quote unquote, shit hits the fan? Because
Yeah.
things will go up, things will go down, and sometimes when people, get to the bottom of that curve, they become completely unreasonable. So that's really what we're trying to figure out is, can we set the right expectations? And when things don't go as planned, will we be able to have a reasonable conversation with this person? Yeah, value alignment.
What happens when you have those you know circumstances when the conversation becomes unreasonable because maybe they weren't a business owner before, and how do you kind of steer that path?
Yeah, besides like trying to be as proactive as possible in that front, I think we do a really good job of doing that. And sometimes like there's the whole concept of selling a franchise versus rewarding franchise. I don't think we do very much selling anymore. We do a lot of expectation setting up front.
Yeah.
So usually when people get past that, they're expecting it, but it's still always harder than anybody expected. So for us, it's about, especially in the first 18 months, it's over support them, over communicate, give them the tools, help them apply the tools. Because even it's overwhelming. You get a franchise, you've got all these great tools. Which one do I use? How do I use it? When do I use it? So for us, it's when you get to that moment where it's like overwhelming. How do we get clarity? What's the one piece we can work on? How do we help you work past that? And then go to number two, number three.
Yeah, I love how you said clarity there, Carmelo, because I believe that leaders that provide clarity are more successful than those that live within chaos, right? And as people, the way people think is they want clarity and they want somebody to lead them and say, hey, here's the road you need to go down. So I'm very happy because with the most successful franchisors that I work with, there's always that word of clarity that comes in, right? So I've got to ask you a question that I've been curious about. So what was harder to deal with for you? Was it actually inventing a product or inventing a category? Right. So what was more work?
I don't know which one was more work, which one was more challenging. Honestly, it's tough to say, but I would lean towards the latter. And the reason for the latter is what you mentioned initially is people don't believe it's possible. People don't know it's possible. And then when you actually come up with a solution, they're like, well, why hasn't anybody else done this? And I was actually astonished that nobody else had done it. I remember when we got our first patent, I was like, I can't believe this. And then we got our second, our third, our fourth. And every time I just can't believe it. So it's like, that part is hard because especially when you're launching in a new territory, it's not just about like, let's say you launch a plumbing business. Everybody knows about plumbing. Nobody knows you can do this to your house, the roof, to the brick, to the windows. So that created a bigger challenge because at scale, when you're trying to scale this, the initial launch marketing and all the stuff that you do up front is a challenge in every new market. Whereas when you create the product, yes, you're iterating and you're optimizing it, but it's not repeated every time you go into a new market. It's that same product, right?
Yeah.
So this challenge compounded, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So, great segue into what I wanted to ask you next. So, you've been, you've hit Netflix, you've hit HGTV, you've hit Forbes. How do you keep the brand fresh and relevant? How do you keep going on about that to keep introducing it to the public and the masses?
The big focus for us over the last 2-3 years has been Google reviews. It sounds so simple, but that's what people look at online, right? Because especially with something like ours, where it's like, sounds like it's too good to be true. Then when you get these reviews, they're like, one lady wrote, I've done all the research, just hire SprayNet, you'll thank me later. And like when you see reviews like that, you're like, okay, well, this is not us saying it, it's them. And then we have customers come, they do their kitchen, then they do their exterior, then they do their roof, right? And they write reviews. My favorite review, I know I'm rambling here, but a customer said, I waited a year to leave my review because I was skeptical even when I got it done. Still looks brand new, still looks amazing, and my friends and family still can't believe it. So like that is better than any marketing creative that we can create, right? And 41% of our customers left a 5-star Google review. 41%.
Wow.
That's a huge amount.
Yeah, that's and quite frankly, that's something to be extremely proud of. That's leadership, and that's how you've developed the team. Speaking about team, you started out obviously as a one-man show, probably, and hey, I can work this, I can get things patented, I can get a couple franchisees. You talked about 2 at first. How big is your team now? And I'm talking both as a franchisor head office and again then in the over 120 territories. So how big is SprayNet as a company now?
Oh, if you count all the franchisees and their staff, probably about 500 people.
Wow.
Yeah, give or take. I wasn't a one-man show though. It was a two-man show. It was myself and and my first painter. He's actually still working here. So employee number one is still here. He's actually making paint in the back right now.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And how big is head office now for your team? How many people have you brought in to support the teams?
So we're a little over 40, and the reason for that is we've got manufacturing, we've got customer experience, we've got a marketing team, our ops team. So yeah, we're actually just shy of 50. It's funny, we're 47. I had to count earlier for something. We're 47 people.
Yeah. Do you ever look back now, Carmelo, and just think, I can't believe this has happened? Like, we've had massive growth. You threw some huge numbers there at the beginning of the show. Do you ever look back and think, wow, like I can't believe I did this? Or do you look at, wow, I can't believe I did it, but almost what's next?
Yeah, that's my problem is I'm always looking at what's next, and my wife tells me like, you should look at how far you've come, but it's always like, what's next? For us, our goal, and it's written on our wall, is 100 million system-wide sales. We want 100 franchisees to be on average doing $1 million, and we're about a third of the way there. So for me, like that's the goal. So like, yes, we've come this far, which is great, but like, I think to your point, I probably need to celebrate that a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, you absolutely have to celebrate for things for sure. Speaking about balance, so how do you balance, having to be constantly innovative and innovation with operational simplicity for the franchises?
Well, it's funny because when people are exploring this franchise now at this point, we've got what we call a leadership call every 2 weeks, and I host it and I answer questions. And one of the questions that comes up almost every time is, "What's next?" And I say, "Nothing for a while." The reason for that is we've barely scratched the surface of all of the stuff that we've got three businesses in one. We do kitchens, we do exteriors, and we do roofs now. Most of our franchisees haven't even gone to business number two. They're still at kitchens. They haven't even gone to exteriors yet, let alone think about the roof stuff, right? So we keep adding stuff. And one of our franchisees said something funny in an interview. He said, "Well, I'm trying to learn iPhone 7. SprayNet's building iPhone 18." And I said,
Yeah.
"Cool, but like we need people to catch up." so now we really our focus has been on execution, on making sure that people are layering in our businesses rather
Yeah.
than adding new businesses for now.
Yeah. So just again, focus and clarity, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
execution is
absolutely.
key.
If you had to sit and talk to a young entrepreneur, and hey, let's be transparent here. You're a very young entrepreneur, right? But what advice would you give them? What technical idea would you give them, and what's the big vision? How would you what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur?
Advice is just start. Paralysis analysis is like you're always waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect product, the perfect this. Start, iterate, optimize, and design thinking, right? And just go back and doing that until you got a good product. Like the products we have today are 10 million times better than the products we had when we started, but we started. Had we not started, we wouldn't have these products today. So I think people just wait too long. There's never a right time. Just go, just do it. And number
Yeah,
two would be you can have the best product in the world. If you don't market it properly, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
So marketing, marketing, marketing.
Yeah, I love what you said there because you and I we play from this a similar playbook, right? So I'm a big believer that it's okay sometimes not to be 100%. You can be 85% and figure out the other 15 along the way, right?
Yeah. I mean, just start.
And you said something key there, Carmelo. You said just start, right? Just start. And I do believe people get scared to just start, and they come up with so many reasons on why not, as opposed to why it will work, right? Let's talk about a bit of failure because every successful entrepreneur I talk to and work with, there's been a point of failure. And I'm just thinking, what role has failure actually played in getting SprayNet to where it is now?
Thank you for saying I'm young. I'm not young anymore. I don't know what's considered young, but when I was young, I started this business when I was 23, and I think there's pros and cons to being naive. You just go, 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 and you just keep winning and you just keep moving forward until you don't, and you don't see it coming because you think you're invincible. And that moment really shaped how version two of SprayNet came to fruition. So we hit a wall where I didn't even know, if we would be able to continue financially. Like we were just in the hole so much, and I just got completely blindsided by it because I was just going and not paying attention to the financials. So, today everybody knows it's hindsight, but cash is king, and I did not look at it enough. And today, every single initiative we do, everything we do is what's our cash flow going to look like? How does that impact cash flow? And can we afford to do it? And if we can't, how do we finance that properly? So I think I spoke about marketing, but you also need cash, because without cash, there's no marketing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Carmelo, I've got two more questions for you just because I know you've been so generous with your time today. But the first one is, as an industry, where do you see the future of home improvement heading? And how is SprayNet helping to shape that along the way?
I think there's a much smaller barrier to entry now because everybody can just turn on a meta ad, which is why we are focusing a lot more on user content, which whether it be in our ads or Google reviews. So
Yeah.
I think Google is taking the forefront here because if you get good Google reviews, you'll show up on local service ads. So I think Google is also recognizing that the barrier to entry is too low, and we need to find a way to differentiate real contractors versus fly-by-night people. So I think we're always looking at how do we, and we said a webinar on this, is everybody can go online. What are we doing offline to amplify online? So lawn signs, feather flags, and everybody talks about traditional marketing like direct mail and door hangers. They don't work anymore. I beg to differ. They definitely amplify your online stuff. So I think there's two pieces there: is how you market yourself, and doing a good job is gonna be a lot more important. Whereas in the past you can kind of hide behind it. And number two, a lot more people are kind of in the DIY stuff. It's getting more and more popular. I saw this a long time ago. I hated competing against the homeowner. I didn't want to sell time. I wanted to sell something that was different, that really had value, that they couldn't do themselves. And that's why I think we're well positioned, because you can't do this yourself, right? We create the product, we create the process, we have specialized equipment. We're not competing against the homeowner. So I think in that regard, we specifically are well positioned. But for others, I think online reviews is key.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Carmelo, my last question, and then I'll get you on your way to dealing with the thousand other things you're dealing with today as a leader and a successful franchisor, is who do you go to for advice? So when I talk to entrepreneurs around the world, there's always one key person that they think of, or kind of one, you know, person in their life that they could say, hey, here's who I go to sometimes to just have them listen to me or get an idea run by them. But who's your rock?
Well, I mean, if I had to say one person, I mean, for sure my spouse, my wife.
Yeah.
I mean, she keeps me grounded. But in terms of like, you need to surround yourself with a community of people. You mentioned YPO at first. That's Young Presidents Organization. So I've got a forum where I discuss stuff. I think John Evans has been on your show. He's been a friend of mine. We're both franchisors. You know, Dan Monaghan has been a great mentor to me. So Dan owns a variety of franchises. I think he's got over 2,000 franchisees. So I've got a good advisory board on the franchise side. A nice entrepreneur group. I've got entrepreneur friends, and then my wife kind of just holds that all together.
Rounds it all up. I love it. And
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that there's not just one person, there's many. So with
Yeah.
that, Carmelo, I thank you for your time today. Thank you for the advice you've given our audience. Thank you for sharing your views on franchisees and people, and just, one of the key things I'll take away from this episode is just start, right? Just, be proactive, start, take a chance, take some risk, calculated risk, right? And, if we're persistent and we're competitive, there's really nothing stopping us of what we can do. So with that, I thank you. Have yourself a great day, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
If you loved that session and that conversation as much as I did, would love to have you join our People Playbook community in the link below.